feel like it's report card day across the National Football League. 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, you know that means it is time for Orange or Blue Today. It's Cecil, Lammey, it's Andrew Mason, and it is the Denver Broncos at the NFL Combine. And, well, we're waiting to see if Andrew Mason can join us. He was at Low Miller's a little bit earlier, maybe had a little bit of that Irish whiskey there at Low Miller's. Used to be called something different. I can't remember what it was, what the name of it was, but that was the place where George Payton made the deal for one Russell Wilson last year. This year, well, you already made the deal. You made the deal for Sean Payton, and Sean Payton now getting a lot of questions from, or answers, I should say, from others around the National Football League. And you've seen the comments floating out there today, including like a Dan Campbell talking about how, who's going to turn around the Broncos? It's going to be Sean Payton. He's going to do some really good things. So Sean Payton's still the talk of the town in Indianapolis and always the talk of the town. Mace, I hope your ears are ringing. I was just talking about you, saying you were at Low Miller's earlier today. No Irish whiskey, though? Didn't have a little breakfast, little whiskey on the rocks, nothing like that at Low Miller's today?
I didn't even go in. I actually didn't even go in. I just was out walking, and I thought I was looking for a good spot to do the live hit on coffee break, and I thought, as you can echo, apologize for that.
That's
and
fine.
I'm like, oh, this seems like a good spot here. Commemorating a little Broncos history, kind of infamous at this point. Maybe Russell Wilson will make it a famous part of Broncos history, but right now it's sort of an infamous moment that happened in there. Although, as DMAC was discussing, apparently, like the Broncos have in their possession the little kind of the receipt or the laundry tag or whatever that they had the terms of the trade written on, but it's not something they're going to make public because those terms did not come to fruition. There's a player's name on there that didn't get traded. So
right, and everyone thinks it's Pat Surtain, but the world will never know. Was that lollipop commercial, right? The world, I mean, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop?
1, 2, 3.
Wahoo! Three is what it takes. All right, Mace, you are there in Indianapolis, and I brought it up in the tease for today's show. Even though the Broncos have already talked and we're waiting for the players to do their workouts and stuff really heats up tomorrow, there were more questions about Sean Payton today going around, and obviously the Broncos still in the buzz about Sean Payton still very strong, even though Payton were done talking.
Yeah, well, a big part of it was because we had Dan Campbell there, and he's worked for Sean Payton, so that's why when Dan Campbell spoke, the subject of Sean Payton did come up. So that's that's why he was brought up at Dan Campbell's press conference. But by and large, actually, the biggest thing buzzing was everything with Jalen Carter this morning, with the word that there was a warrant out for his arrest back in Georgia. The 2 misdemeanor charges tied to allegedly leaving the scene of an accident that killed a teammate and a member of Georgia's football staff, and some false information that was given. And so about 10:30 Eastern time this morning, everyone was waiting for Jalen Carter to speak, and he didn't speak. He wasn't going to do his press conference today. So that throws the top of the draft into a little bit of tumult, I would say.
Right.
Although Edward, what Broncos taking it, Lamar Jackson, where'd that?
That's going to be Atlanta, and then Dom is trolling you with "Go Devils." So
yeah, whatever. What is going on here? Did I miss something today? What the heck happened?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting day to be sure, and interesting comments coming from people out there about what George Payton had to say in terms of kind of the sweet spot for the draft. It's prompted me to start an article. I don't know if I'll finish it because I don't like being mean, Mace, and I don't think it's being mean. But the sweet spot's only the sweet spot unless you're sour or a sour puss like I am when it comes to George Payton drafting. And honestly, I think for what they need, interior offensive line and offensive tackle, all that stuff's already dried up. Your sweet spots at running back, your sweet spots, there's still some edge guys left over there. There always is. But for what they need on the O-line, I'm like, sweet spot? There's not a sweet spot there for what you really need.
Well, you're talking about still finding guys that you can develop, yeah, but immediate help probably not coming in round 3 on the offensive line. This is why I think the Broncos' best course of action over the next 2 months is use free agency for the offensive line, find your other running back in the draft with one of those third round picks, and then draft for depth along the offensive line throughout and develop those guys long term. I think getting the offensive line right, it's a multi-path solution. It's not either free agency or the draft, it's both. But when talking about the draft part of it, it's developing for 24 and 25 because that's the caliber of players you're likely to see out there, not somebody who's going to come in to the lineup day one and be an immediate upgrade. They might start day one. It doesn't mean that they're going to be ready to start day one. See Lloyd Cushenberry, third round pick back in 2020 for kind of an example of what I'm talking about. But you can find immediate positive contributors at running back in round 3, which is why I say take the money you're going to spend in free agency and devote most of it to the offensive line. Of course, that being said, if you lose Draymond Jones, then that's another need you're going to have to address too.
Right.
So,
right. It's another place you're going to have to go if you're the Denver Broncos. And that's why I think this is the most critical draft for George Paton. This will be, I don't know if I could be as extreme and say what keeps his job, although I still don't know if he's safe after the draft. That's just me, Mace. But I think this is a hypercritical draft and free agency period. We can't forget that part about George Paton's job as well. I'm just glad he's not on the coaching search this year so he can spend more time with the duties that he really needs to crush this year.
well, not on the coaching search, and also not looking for a quarterback this year as well, because you are going to ride Russell Wilson. Now, as we talked about on Coffee Break this morning, if Hendon Hooker drops into the late second round, early third round, that I think creates a very interesting conversation that you can have about maybe going in that direction. But you know what? If you've taken your care of your offensive line in free agency, and in terms of pressing needs for 2023, you are left only with running back heading into the draft. You do have the freedom, perhaps, to use one of those picks in the early third round on Hendon Hooker. Or we know that Sean Payton, that's another thing. George Payton likes to trade back and accumulate picks. Sean Payton has a history of trading up, sacrificing future draft capital. So if he sees somebody that he really likes dropping into the middle of the second round, would Sean Payton consider trading next year's second rounder and one of those third rounders to move up and pick that player? Absolutely. That's the type of deal Sean Payton likes to make.
Yeah.
So you've got, it's all hunky dory right now, but you've got two people with two kind of different sets of instincts operating when you get into the draft room. So it'll be interesting to see how those mesh.
That could create a nice balance for the Denver Broncos, honestly, Mace, because you've got Peyton wanting to move up and, razzle dazzle with the picks, and you've got Peyton wanting to move back. I guess I should explain which one it is, right?
I think we just got to start saying George and Sean.
George and Sean. We're on a first name basis.
On second references, or saying their full name, because you can't say when you're when you're writing, you can, but when you're speaking, you can't say Peyton or Peyton. It's like, which one? And oh yeah, by the way, there's that quarterback whose first name is Peyton.
Well, let me rewind that, because I'm probably going to clip this later, Mace. So I think that could create quite the balance for the Denver Broncos, because you have Sean Payton, who wants to move up and razzle dazzle with the picks, and you've got George Payton, who wants to move back and, stockpile more selections. And maybe that's the balance this team needs. And it's something I look forward to seeing how it plays out this year in the draft.
I look forward to it, but at the same time, what if those things go head to head? One ends up winning.
Sean Payton wins then. Sean Payton runs the roost. And you wrote about it in one of your latest pieces at denversports.com. Like, Sean Payton's the alpha here, everybody. There's no question.
Yeah. It's his show. While they both report to Greg Penner, if there is a leader among equals, with all respect to George Payton, is Sean Payton. Sean Payton didn't come here to be subservient to a general manager. He wants a general manager he can work with. But if there's a tie to be broken, it's probably going to be broken in favor of Sean Payton. It's his organization now.
Yeah, he's running the show. So there you go. And I don't know why. I try to not spend much time in D-Mac's head. But the fact that he wouldn't want Hendon Hooker because of the khaki pants, Hendon Hooker's a first round pick. Okay.
That's what I tried to tell him.
Everybody knows that. Well, and then he's like, there's a Hendon Hooker next year. I'm like, no, no. Like, you have an opportunity to get a graded first round quarterback. I don't think he falls to the third. That's just me. But you have an opportunity to get a Hendon Hooker that doesn't come around that often. And that is a first round quarterback, even though Evans will say khaki pants, which I always think is dumb because anyone that's a khaki pants quarterback was missed on in the draft. That's it. That's the whole point behind the whole quarterback debate that is nonstop and this argument that's lasted for my entire life. And I can't stand it, Mace. I can't stand it.
I mean, if we only define it by where they're picked, Russell Wilson was a khaki pants quarterback because he went on day 2 in the 3rd round.
Right.
Okay. And the thing is, you have to look at the quality of the prospect. And with Hendon Hooker, it's a combination of age plus ACL because he's 25 years old. If he didn't have the ACL, but only had the concern about being overaged, you'd be talking about him as a first round pick. If he had the other way, first round pick. You put both of those things together, you're talking about him sliding into the 2nd round and perhaps through the 2nd round. We'll see where that slide ends up stopping. But I do think if it's pick 55 and he's still on the board, that's where you may have to have a serious conversation about whether you move up and take him. And that's where you say, okay, do you sacrifice a future pick to move up from one of those 2 spots in the 3rd round to get Hendon Hooker? There's the other interesting thing in play, Cease, is even though as not a first round pick, you don't have the 5th-year option on him. If you have him on the non-football injury list and keep him there as a rookie, which you do have the option of doing because he's coming off that torn ACL. If you do that, then after the 4th year of his contract, he's a restricted free agent, so you can get him back at cost control. So effectively, you can use that year as a redshirt year, and it's a classroom and training year. You work on the mental side of it, learning the scheme and all that. And then if Russell Wilson doesn't work out, then in 2024, you move on before the next $37 million kicks in that's guaranteed if he's on the team for the 5th day of the 24 league year. And Hendon Hooker is your quarterback in 2024, and you have a 4-year window to work with him.
Yep.
Before he goes beyond cost control.
That's what Bugs Bunny would call strategy. And if you're the Denver Broncos, that's the type of strategy that you need. Now, this morning on Coffee Break, Mace, and I need Rachel to shout us out on Orange Blue today because I shout out Coffee Break all the time, Rachel. Anyway,
is she watching this?
Probably not. You saw you mentioned Ron Wolf and the Ron Wolf strategy. I think it's incredible. Nate's saying it's the Mike Evans strategy. No, it's not. Evans is just trying to rip off Ron Wolf. And the Packers, the list of quarterbacks, which I'm so glad that you went through to highlight to everybody the way that Green Bay, even with Brett Favre, and yes, they did roll through some Brian Brahms. I remember him getting Peyton Manning comparisons when he came out of Louisville. I was like, no.
Yeah, they missed from time to time.
They did. Yeah. But they had an Aaron Brooks. They had a Matt Hasselbeck. They had a Mark Brunell. They had
forgot Aaron Brooks. And so you think,
I wondered what you thought of Aaron Brooks because I was like, okay, he was good for a while. He laughed when he's getting blown out. Okay. But he's good for a while.
Well, let's throw him in there because you know what? I mentioned Matt Hasselbeck. I mentioned Mark Brunell.
Yep.
I mentioned Kurt Warner.
Yep.
I mentioned Ty Detmer. All 4 of those quarterbacks, and then Aaron Brooks, 5 quarterbacks who led teams to the playoffs after being in Green Bay at some point. Kurt Warner was just a cup of coffee. He didn't stick on the roster, but they still brought him into camp. I think one of the reasons why Kurt Warner didn't end up sticking is they had That was, I believe, when they had I want to say did they have Detmer and Brunell at that point
I believe they
in
might
94?
have, yeah.
Yeah. That was going to be hard. That was going to be hard for an undrafted player to stick, but you still bring him in and you still get him some work. This is what smart teams do.
Yes.
You keep bringing in quarterbacks, keep developing them, keep taking those swings to find out. I mean, I wasn't even opposed to Jarrett Garantano being brought in. I mean, why not see what he's got? But the thing is, you keep doing it. Like I think, with all respect to Brett Rippon, the Broncos have gone as far as they're going to get with Brett Rippon as a
Right.
backup quarterback. It's time, and that's another thing. You have to know when to bring in somebody else. You have to know when to start the cycle again. And if you keep bringing quarterbacks, then you don't hang on too long, and then you keep the cycle going. You keep the churn going. But if you believe in your teaching, your philosophy enough, you're going to create some quarterbacks who end up going elsewhere, and that validates what you're doing. So yeah, absolutely. If it's up to me, they sign a backup quarterback in free agency that, a reclamation guy, whether it's Jameis Winston if he's cut by the Saints, or Marcus Mariota or Baker Mayfield. And then you turn around and add another quarterback in the draft, maybe even two quarterbacks in the draft. Maybe it's one quarterback in the draft, one is a priority free agent. And then,
Right.
who's to say that you don't find a way to keep all four in your midst? Three on
Correct
the
me if I'm
53, one on
wrong,
the practice squad.
because yesterday I was wrong about so many things. I was rewatching and I was like, oh my God, I said Devin Lloyd, not Devin Bush. Anyway, I'm just that way where I'm like, whatever, wherever I'm at.
We've had a lot of Devons in recent
Yes,
years.
a lot of Devins, confusing with the Devins, but like there was a fourth quarterback in Dallas one time. His name was Tony Romo, and he got some work with Sean Payton. So I'm just saying, like, I want four quarterbacks all the time.
Yes.
And I don't care if that fourth guy you rotate through a couple times, like whatever.
I
Like,
feel
I
like the
want that fourth
Broncos,
guy.
and I feel like the Broncos have used some ridiculous excuses for not going that deep at quarterback, like, oh, you can't find enough snaps. Well, then you create some, right? I mean, let's go back to 2015 when Peyton Manning needed some work, not in practice. Jordan Taylor went out there and ran routes in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
You find ways, you get creative, you figure it out. I
Chad
mean,
Kelly would do it by himself. We've talked about that. He'd go out
yeah.
there with the script every day after practice and work by himself, throwing
Mm-hmm.
to what, trainers or air or
Yeah.
anything. He's just going through the footwork, going through the plays. Like, yeah, you can find a way.
There are ways to do it if you're creative about it. And Sean Payton, I think, is creative about it, and I think he will find ways. Look, this is a guy who you go back to 2020, they still had Drew Brees, they signed Jameis Winston. Oh, by the way, you've still got Taysom Hill there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Taysom Hill started some games that year. Sean Payton's going to go heavier at quarterback than the Broncos have, and I like that sort of thinking. I don't think we're gonna look at the quarterback depth chart this year, where last year you had Russell Wilson, Brett Rippon in year 4 of being around, and Josh Johnson, who's basically played for like half the league over his time. I think we're going to look at this being more robust this year.
Yes. And
Oh,
Brett Rippon made sense when you had Drew Lock because he was like a coach, right? Like he helped Drew Lock with the
by the
mental part
way,
of the game. What?
Rachel tells us that she does mention orange and blue.
Oh,
In
okay.
fact,
She
even
Texas.
making a graphic for orange and blue espresso shot anytime one of you comes on.
Oh
And
my
yes, she
God, I'm
does
so
tune in.
embarrassed. Oh, there you go, Rachel. We
Oh,
appreciate you. Thank you,
Cecil.
Rachel. Thank you. See, I got us in
You,
trouble. I got a
dude,
mouth on me, Mace.
you stepped in it, buddy.
I don't want to make Rachel upset. But anyway, we appreciate you,
You,
Rachel. Thank you very much.
yeah, you Wyoming guys know about stepping in it from time to time.
Yeah, we do step in it from time to time. The Denver Broncos trying to step out of it, I guess. There's a segue for you, right, Mace? Where they're trying to step out of it and step back into the limelight. So at the scouting combine, the interviews, the medical checks, obviously of the utmost importance. With drills starting tomorrow, will there be a particular position that you're focused on? Or what does your kind of plan look like for the combine, putting yourself in the shoes of George Payton?
If I'm putting myself in the shoes of George Payton, I'm maybe now I'm paying more attention to the D line and edge drills than I was maybe planning to. Certainly they should have been planning to pay attention to the edge drills anyway, because I'd like to see the Broncos add to that room, add some depth. You're not going to get a surefire starter, but you can get some quality. I think they're going to have their eyes on that. It's funny because the way you were segueing, I thought you were talk about how the Broncos need to make some improvements based on this NFLPA survey that came out today.
Yeah, that was kind of the talk besides the Jalen Carter stuff, but like the PA survey gave the Broncos a D plus. Okay.
Okay, no, wait, no. They had the three categories that they got a D or a D plus. Overall, if you did like a GPA thing, they were a C plus.
Okay.
As I added up.
What were they, middle of the pack, 23rd, 20th, something?
I think the NFLPA ranked it 20th, but when I kind of went through every grade and did it like a GPA style, it came up 21st. So basically, the lower part of the middle tier is where they are. Second best in the AFC West, by the way. Apparently, the Chiefs have some real issues going on, and the Chargers. I mean,
Yeah.
Orlando will tell you all about the Chargers' food.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Chargers travel, but not as bad as what with the Bengals were the worst. Who was the worst? Somebody was like, "Oh, Cardinals were like charging them for meals and stuff."
Yeah. I got to go through the teams here because like if you go in and see like the team report, it gets into the details. Like for example, all right, let's talk about like Broncos got a D plus for treatment of families because they're one of 14 teams that does not offer a family room, and their post-game gathering area ranked 22nd. They were a D in food service and nutrition, in part because they were one of only 2 teams that do not provide vitamins, and multiple players don't feel there's an individualized nutrition plan or support. B plus in the weight room, and most of the issues brought up was that players wanted more space. And that's actually something I'm going to write about tonight
Yeah,
here.
that's
Is
legitimate.
some of the issues that we're talking about here probably are why you're talking about a new facility. More space in the weight room. They gave an A minus to the strength coaches, but most teams rate their coaches positively. Training room C plus, because they're one of only 6 teams in the league that does not provide a sauna. Okay, training staff B, and that sounds good, but that's tied for 28th in the NFL of training staff. Okay. Locker room, and this is another thing that gets down to facility, is D
Yep.
plus. And the
And they've rejuvenated that thing. They like reworked it.
They basically rearranged it. They have made the most of the space they have. But the complaints included not enough room, needing bigger lockers, not enough showers, not enough bathroom stalls. Okay. That and you know what? They have done everything they can with the space and the way that building is designed. The locker room is at the center of the Paul D. Bolin Memorial Broncos Center building as part of the UC Health Training Center. The locker room's at the center of that. It was designed that way. And it was fine in 1990. It is not fine in 2023. The locker room needs to be the size of the locker room at the stadium, which is massive. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's what players expect. That's not what they're getting on an everyday basis. So, frankly, as I'm looking at this, if I'm Greg Penner looking at this, I am moving facility up the list of priorities here, because a lot of the teams that score highly on these sorts of things, they have newer facilities. What this is telling me is a big step this team has to take is a new training center, whether it's building a new building on the current site or on a new plot of land. This is something that I think really has to enter Greg Penner's short and long-term thinking. I personally think Yeah.
Go
By the
ahead.
way, I think they get a facility before a new stadium. New
Yes,
facility before
yes,
new stadium.
yes. And didn't the survey say something like most players felt new ownership would get them? That
Yes.
stuff.
And the field, believe it or not, at the end of the season, resodding the field for week 18, that was a huge part of that. That they feel, because the players feel, because of things like that, that ownership will address the concerns that were brought up by this thing. But boy, I mean, I want to dive into like some of the others. Like, of course, it should surprise nobody that like Washington uh got very poor scores. Washington got an F- in team travel because they did because
F
oh,
minus.
F-. We're
Wow.
dead last. Only 22% of players feel like they have enough room to spread out. They're one of 6 teams that make their young players have roommates on the road, and they're one of 7 teams that does not offer any of its players first-class seats. The Washington locker room, F-. Players want more personal space, bigger and better lockers, and more bathroom space. And some players complain that there's a lack of warm water and poor drainage in the showers. Washington's training room got an F-. Oh gosh. Oh man, but and Washington's food service got a D+. Even though all the quality of the food was ranked 18th, but only 59% of players felt there was enough room in the cafeteria. Yeah, it's funny to go through this. Like, so Washington got F-. I mean, I thought to myself, how do you get an F- in
F
travel?
minus. Yeah, like F
Oh,
minus. And you would think after they remove the hidden cameras, they would have more room in the
yeah,
showers and the locker rooms,
yeah.
allegedly, or whatever I have to say.
By the way, the among division rivals, the Los Angeles Chargers are 30th. The Chargers got an F in food service and nutrition. Orlando Franklin be like, yep, yep. 0% of players say there's enough room in the cafeteria. They got a D- in treatment of families because they don't offer a family room at the stadium. And the Chargers got an F- for their training room because they don't have a steam room. They don't have a. They're one of 2 teams that does not have either a sauna or a steam room, and that the hot tub is often broken and the cold tub is often not cold, and the tubs are, quote, gross, unquote. Oh, this is fun. This is like a treasure trove here. Oh my gosh. Wow. Gross.
Gross, everybody.
The locker room has a lack of privacy and a limited number of showers, which creates a very long wait. All is not well in Chargerland. And guess what? The world champion Kansas City Chiefs, they didn't score well either. Kansas
No.
City Chiefs overall 29th, 32. Broncos second best in the AFC West. And what brought down the Chiefs was on team travel. They make their young players have roommates, very few first class seats, and only fifth and 89% of players feel they have enough room to spread out. Locker room D-. Lockers are old and in desperate need of a renovation, and many players complain they want to have a chair at their locker instead of a stool so they can lean back when sitting. But here's another thing: training staff D- in Kansas City, because players wanted a more welcoming environment. They have there's issues with the head trainer Rick Burkholder, and Chiefs players, quote, feel discouraged from reporting their injuries, do not feel they get the level of personal care they should, and fear retribution for speaking up for better care.
That'll say something
Wow.
right there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is bad. So Kansas City, not exactly Camelot based
Right.
on these reports. Did you say Cincinnati had some low scores too?
I thought Cincinnati did, and then Arizona charged people for their food. Like when you
Wow.
want extra portions, or if you're in the off season of the facility and the off season rehabbing or whatever, and you eat, like they'll
Yeah.
take it, they'll dock your pay.
Yeah. Here's Cincinnati F-. Players are encouraged to come in on off days to work out and prepare for the game, but the cafeteria is not open on those off days, so players can't even grab a banana before working out. The quality of the Cincinnati food ranked 31st. They don't provide dinner to players. They don't provide vitamins for players, and they're the only team that doesn't provide supplements for players. Wow.
Okay.
Cincinnati's still cheap. By the way, their training room is D- because there's not enough hot tub space, and according to 23% or 77% of players feel there's not enough hot tub space. It's
I
interesting,
just
like, to
want to
figure
know if
out
there's
why.
the bin of used jock straps.
I
Big
don't
Al
know, but
always used to tell that story of, like, when you needed a jock
yeah.
strap, they'd be like, over there, and there's like this bin of used jock straps.
But in Cincinnati, many showers and toilets in the locker room do not work. Wow.
You're having too much fun with this, Mace. You're having
I
too
am
much
having
fun.
a lot of. I think it's an article, like, there's an article in here just like highlights of this.
Right.
And yeah, like, and this is what it says about Arizona. If you'd like dinner, it'll be boxed up for you, but the team will charge you via payroll deduction. The only club that does this. If you work out at the facility after the season is over, they charge you for every meal eaten at the facility. Their weight room is an F- because the floors are uneven and the floorboards are peeling up. The training room is an F- because let's see here. It's outdated, and there are staffing issues with the training room. The locker room is an F. Complaints that it's old and needs renovation. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
see, you have to look like at the low grades, and it's like, okay, why did they get Fs? Yeah. What did the Baltimore Ravens got an F- in strength staff? Wonder what Derek Wolf thinks of that.
He'd have a few things to say about that, I'm sure.
I'm sure he would.
Okay.
That is
Mace,
something.
super quick. We're gonna check in with you tomorrow, but you'll be like trying to break away from drills for a little bit.
Right.
As the drills kick off in Indianapolis.
Yes. That'll be good. It'll be good to kind of to get the eyes on everybody and see what everyone does. First time media's been allowed to watch all the combine workouts, by the way. First time they've done that. About time. Should have happened a long time ago.
Time indeed. That's for sure. All
exactly.
right. That is a wrap for today's program with Rachel V. Hill watching. We appreciate you very much, each and every one of you out there. It's Orange and Blue today, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday. He is Andrew Mason. Follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. I am at Cecil Lammey. Until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned, and as always, stay frosty.